Good evening, everyone, and I'd like to call to order the Community Planning Committee meeting of Monday, March 11th on this scariest day ever, the day after, is it daylight savings time we moved into? Yes. So I hope everyone had a gentle spring ahead. So committee, we do have some pinks, and I'll add those to correspondence 7B. Are there, and one other request, if I could, Mr. Harding is here from the Metchosin Cricket Club, and I was going to ask him if he might explain his request for a memorial bench, and I wonder if we could do that during reports 7A. Does that work? Okay. With that change, could I have a motion to approve? Councillor Gray, Councillor Donaldson, and all in favor? Thanks, carried. Okay. We don't have any presentations, so public participation. And as you approach the mic, when you have approached the mic, please say your name, the street you live on, and 4 minutes, please, is what we customarily ask people to keep their comments within. So, thank you.
Hi, my name is Darren Brown, Graceland Road resident. I'm here tonight to present you with a petition from the Duke Road residents and concerned neighbors. The title of the petition is Community Petition Reevaluate Duke Road East Trail Funding. So before I read the petition to you, I should underline who it is coming from. All but one of the affected residents on phase 1 have signed this petition. All of the affected residents on phase 2 have signed this petition, and the majority of residents on phase 3 have signed this petition. Many other concerned residents, neighbors in the Albert Head neighborhood area directly adjacent to Duke Road East, as well as those in the larger Metchosin community, have also signed this petition. So this petition states, we, the undersigned, urge Mayor Marie Treese Little and Councillor Jay Shukin to reconsider the rushed allocation of $20,000 for the Duke Road East Trail. Reasons for reevaluation. Community priority. The proposed trail is the lowest priority in our Parks and Recreation Master Plan. Pause funding until community priorities are considered. Number 2 is environmental impact. Number 3, financial transparency, total project cost. And number 4 is strategic alignment. Clarify how the proposal aligns with existing strategic plans, such as the Metchosin Community Trail Network Master Plans. The petition further demands that you halt funding, that you pause the $20,000 allocation for a thorough assessment and community input. You provide public consultation and conduct open forums for residents to voice concerns and suggestions. And that you have financial disclosure, that you provide a breakdown of total project costs before beginning, for transparency. So we need to align this with our strategic plans. That's number 4, and we clarify how those proposals align with existing strategic plans. So I had initially thought this was quite a divisive issue, right, in our community. After speaking with those who will be directly impacted, it actually seems quite unifying. They're against it. Having spoken with many people about the trail, I have heard overwhelmingly that it's unnecessary, impractical, expensive, redundant, and does not serve the best interests of the community. Your constituents are feeling bullied, harassed, antagonized, and ridiculed. They have not been included in any process. Councillor Shukin, your request to allocate $20,000 to Duke Road for survey, planning, and phase 1 construction, now admittedly with some respectful language, and then have a discussion about Parks and Trails Master Plan and community priorities. To be clear, you're proposing to allocate the funds to build this lowest of priority trails, and then we will consider the overall strategy and master plan for the OCP. To be clear, this approach does not address the demands of this petition. If you press ahead with this first motion of your councillor's update, Duke Road East Trail, you will likely succeed. I think you probably have the votes at this table to impose your will on these constituents. You can win this battle, and you can shove it right down their throats. However, if you do so, it will cost your credibility. The only winning move is not to play the hand. Important issues like the buffer lands lie ahead. Your ability to meaningfully listen and to the broader community and provide unbiased decision-making will be openly questioned. Plan first, then build. Failure to plan is planning to fail. Tactically, you'll win. Strategically, you'll fail. Councillor Donaldson?
Mr. Brown, you're almost at your
Thank you.
performance. So
Councillor Donaldson, you were right to bring up the Master Trails Plan. Thank you very much. And highlight the need to update the document. I appreciate your promises of financial responsibility. Rushing to dump $20,000 into the lowest priority trail is clearly something you should hesitate to do. Councillor Epp, you ran on a promise to listen to people, especially those that are least able to represent themselves at this table. By signing this petition, people with mobility issues who aren't able to be here have spoken. I hope you hear them.
okay, Mr. Brown, thank you. Your performance. You want 30 seconds to wrap up?
Yeah, I would appreciate that. Thank you. I would just like to restate. Enshrined in our Appendix 1 of our OCP is a wonderful document, the Master Parks and Recreation Master Plan. It contains the Metchosin Community Trail Network Master Plan. This is where the trails are prioritized. Until those documents are amended through community consultation and extensive input, their direction is clear. And you are offside with the OCP if you approve this councillor's request.
Thank you. Anyone? Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. I wanted to take this opportunity to express my total opposition to this proposal to build the Duke Road Trail. My opposition is based upon the following. There is no justifiable need for the project. It may be justified on the basis of safety, but traffic on Duke Road, from personal experience as a periodic user, is not particularly heavy, and is certainly no heavier than many other streets in the municipality. This is a rural municipality where we are very much used to sharing the road with other users. Just who is this trail being built for? It seems to me that most of the users will come from Royal Bay. There are numerous trails in this part of the district. Why is this proposal being given special treatment? It seems to me that it's basically an ad hoc decision, an ad hocery at its worst. The priority attached to Duke Road ranks at the bottom of the 14-project 5-year plan. The proposed trail starts at the end of an overgrown trail, overgrown because of a lack of use and a lack of volunteer effort to maintain that trail. The proposed trail has been divided into phases. Phase 1 is the extension of the trail from the end of the existing trail to Chapel Heights. This extension ends up going nowhere unless later phases are undertaken. Proceeding with Phase 1 has all the hallmarks of forcing council to continue work sometime in the future to complete the trail. I had the opportunity to take a look today in terms of the feasibility study. One of the disappointing features in it was that there was almost a complete disregard for the major work that will have to be done in phases 2 and 3, particularly regarding the crossing of the creek. Various estimates have been given as to how much that kind of work will be required, but something in the order of $100,000 has been mentioned, requiring retaining walls and widening of the road. If that is the case, that issue should be resolved before any work is undertaken on Phase 1. If it's not approved, if it's not undertaken, work on Phase 1 is just sheer waste of money. Without going to future phases, this $20,000 investment at this particular time is a waste. There also seems to be no recognition of ongoing trail maintenance in the absence of proven lack of volunteer effort to do the maintenance on the existing trail. Future phases are a real bummer. This work involves a creek crossing and a dip in Duke Road where the road is narrow and is significantly higher than the creek. Constructing the trail will be enormously expensive. A good example of what might be required is the recent construction of a piece of Metchosin Road at Lomax, where the road was widened, had to be retained, and includes a safety handrail. Harold Parapolkan, who has provided many free and at-cost volunteer services for trail development in the district, was asked to provide advice about the Duke Trail project. He has given that advice to council committees.
Mr. McPherson,
Yes?
you're over 4 minutes now, please.
Okay. Just make use of the advice given to you, particularly from an individual who's one of the major contributors of volunteer effort in the municipality. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Committee members, our CAO. One just quick comment regarding the proposed Duke Road Trail. Others have spoken to it, I think, more than adequately. But just on the basis of budget constraints alone, please step back, reconsider. Not only is it obviously not wanted, in this context, this year, it is absolutely not affordable. So I'll leave that at that. The main item I would like to address this evening relates to a now quite long-standing offer to the district to fund or partially fund an arm's length professional appraisal of our bufferlands. Now, following an all too brief discourse, now over 4 months ago, and subsequently, I, and by implication, the APRM, were perceived by a few folks and accused of, quote, driving the agenda. I can assure you that that is in no way the case, nor is it factual. If that was so, the same could be said for anyone coming up and speaking at this microphone. As you may recall, the offer that was made to fund or partially fund such an appraisal suggested 3 options at that time. First one, jump in with both feet and contribute to the cause at roughly 25% of what it would otherwise cost to the district. Second option, do not contribute financially, but agree to accept the results if it in fact happens, to use or not use at your discretion. Thirdly, you can wash your hands of the entire proposal. Perhaps you have your own plans, but would you be kind enough to share with us your rationale? In summary, I'd just like to make it clear that this offer, from the outset, has been proposed to you in nothing but good faith, and is a means of best positioning this community in the future funding and management of what we know as our buffer lands. Period. Amen. As it happens, I'm now in receipt of 2 quotes from local and highly esteemed appraisal firms that I have passed to our CAO for distribution and your consideration. Interestingly enough, one of them in conversation said, "Are you talking about the Center Mountain fiasco and the property immediately below?" And I said, "Yes, I think we are." And he said, "Oh boy, that quote's included." But they're very amazingly familiar with this situation. I think it's hardwood for somebody, but it's there. So in this context, and as a parallel, I would like to remind you that a few years ago, and many of you came to the forefront in the context of a subdivision proposal for the Boys and Girls Club lands. I do not think I need to mention that the outcome of that proposal could well have come out very, very differently if another...
Chris, you're almost out of time.
Okay. If another anonymous and significant donor had not stepped forward to secure a legal opinion. We know that was the turning point. Final comment. I've come to learn that there's been some speculation as to who the funding anonymous donor is in this scenario. It shouldn't matter at all, but the scuttlebutt is wrong. Enough to say that the mysterious party is the founding member of the APRF. So please note.
Thank you, Chris. You're out of time.
All right, 2 minutes.
No,
1 minute.
no, sorry, 30 seconds, please. Yeah.
Note that it is not APRF's practice to sit on a member's targeted donation indefinitely. With that in mind, please communicate your response, reaction, on or before the next meeting of council.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you for your time.
One thing I will just say is we talked about this now twice, and we're at where we're at. We've had, I believe, open discussion, and I don't think we're going to action it any further, and I'm not, most certainly. And so I think you have a response already. If one of my colleagues wants to bring it up at some point, they can, but we've
So
talked
that
about it.
is, you don't want to play, basically?
Right, not at this point. So thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you.
Public participation.
Just can't help myself. My name is Brent Donaldson, Challister Court. I was the Trails Coordinator for approximately 5 years, but a member of the Parks and Trails Committee for 9. Certainly, when you see 2 petitions, both parties wanting different things, certainly it plays out into some more dialogue. I can recall probably around 2010, 2011, the Kangaroo Roadside Trail. That was fairly contentious, and there were some properties that owners that felt that they'd be impacted by a roadside trail in front of their properties. There was a survey done, and those folks ended up having to move some fencing and the like. But in the end, I think it was a good step forward. I'm not speaking for or against this particular trail, but I think there needs to be more dialogue, maybe a public meeting in the chambers here to alleviate some of the people's worries or concerns, both budgetary and an impact on their property. I was involved with one trail that was contentious. It involved 3 property owners. 2 were in favor and there was 3 property owners, 2 were against, and 1 was in favor, and that's between Chapel Heights and Duke Road. And if you drive towards Colwood, it's a nice little roadside trail that meandered through a part of a ditch area. And I know the folks that were against it, hopefully they were satisfied in the end because there was regrowth. But again, Harold Perpalkin did the work, and I think it was a good addition. Certainly phase 1 makes sense to me. I'm not going to talk about the expenses, but certainly the trails that we try, or at least the committee tried to do, was link neighborhoods. Certainly from Chapel Heights down to Tower Point and through there. There's a bus route. I'm not suggesting that phase 2 and phase 3 go ahead, but certainly it's those linkages. There's the Berdeen Trail, there's the Dunn Trail. There's a number of in that neighborhood. So it's the linkage that I certainly, as a Trails Coordinator, identified with. I do understand the problematic issues on phase 3, and I actually walked that section with the Parks and Trails chair probably 7-8 years ago. So it is problematic and expensive, but certainly I suggest that you have some dialogue with these folks. There's a lot of people on both sides, and I think I would disagree or agree with not moving forward this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Anyone else for public participation?
Good evening, Kiara Kahakawilla, resident of Perry Cross Road, but former and fondly a resident of Duke Road. I actually hadn't planned on speaking tonight, so I've just sort of jotted down some quick notes of things that I had wanted to say, but I will also say that the speakers prior to myself have spoken very well in regards to some of the concerns that they're bringing forward to you this evening. I think this might actually be a case, not so much of the cart before the horse, but maybe that you're looking to lay your egg before you've nurtured your chick. Insofar as, Councillor Shukin, in your councillor's update, Your second request is to talk about the Parks and Trails Master Plan. Really and honestly, that's something that I think you need to do first. Brent just talked about connectivity, and he's right. And without an actual Parks and Trails Master Plan, how are you going to know which connectivities is it that you want to focus on first? And this particular trail, with 3 phases, at a very high cost, my understanding it's around $100,000 based on what Harold had said, but depends. We all know that prices can go up, and usually they will. At this point, I think it serves your purpose to be able to serve this community to do your plan first. Start with that, figure out what's needed, and then based on what I'm hearing tonight, the fact is that you've got petitions in front of you, and I generally don't sign petitions, but honestly, I probably would have signed the one that Darren brought forward based on the information that he's got there and as a former resident of the area. Consult with your residents first, find out from them what they want, talk to your Parks and Trails, get them, your committee, get them to help you develop that master plan that I know needs to be done, and I know you want to do. Leave that as your legacy. Get that done, do the planning, maybe start the work before the end of this term, but at least leave that in place so that you have something that you can look back on and say, we did this, we listened to the people, we were able to make sure that we put our priorities in check, we put our finances in check, and we were able to deliver what it was that our residents wanted. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Wendy Mitchell, Woody Beach Road. As usual, I haven't been able to hear a thing, but I think you guys are getting the idea that right now people aren't too enthusiastic about this trail, considering the taxes, considering the year. It's a great idea. I don't think anyone's against the idea somewhere down the road, but I'm just going to say, I have 2 children who attended Hans Helgeson School. One is 52 years old now, one is 42 years old. And it has taken until last year or the year before to get a crosswalk there. And it's always been difficult parking. It's always been hard for kids. I don't know why no child has ever been killed. I think because we're all so alarmed about it and on top of it. That's a long time to wait for a crosswalk. And we've always known that we should have a roadside trail on Rocky Point Road there. The other place that really needs a roadside trail is William Head Road. But let's just keep the wish lists down and do some work. The other thing is, apparently there was a problem on Lombard Drive. And I hope you guys just go and cut all those trees down as soon as possible, because they'll grow up really strong and lovely very, very quickly. I've already lived through once of them being cut, and they really are lovely. They have a very finite life, and it really shouldn't take a whole lot of studies and experts going and looking at it. We all know this. We're rural people. We understand trees. So anyway, let's just nix that roadside trail for a bit. And I hope they don't have to wait 40, 50 years.
Thank you, Wendy. Anyone else for public participation? Mr. Aubrey.
Ron Aubrey, 3745 Metchosin Road, the acting Parks and Trails coordinator. Whatever the position is, chairman. This petition that has been presented tonight, and what I heard at the council meeting last week, I'd like council to please refer the people to the Parks and Trails. You have referred this project to Parks and Trails to do a study, review, and get the information to make a recommendation to move forward to council. We need all information, the positive and the negatives. We can't turn around and make an intelligent decision without first getting the information. And positive people, they've been very forward. The negatives, you're working behind us. Come to the meetings. Tell us what the problems are so that we can adjust and understand it. To be honest with you, at this point in time, we really haven't moved that far forward because we don't have all the information. That's the reason why we were asking for $10,000. $10,000 for a survey. Any major plan for a trail, we've got to know where the boundaries are before we start any construction. And that's exactly what we're trying to do at this point. We're asking to find out where all the boundaries are so that then we can decide. There's no decision on the trail yet. There's been a proposal by the proponents, but there has been no decision as to the direction of the trail in terms of which side of the road it's going to be or whatever, until we have that information. So the $10,000 is in your best interest to provide us so that we can then review, get public information, and tell us what would be the problems with what we're trying to deal with. Harold Propulkin is volunteering to do the second phase. The first phase, as far as what's going on, the $10,000 is being asked for is to finish the linkage of a trail that was already started. And we're bringing it to a conclusion at Chapel Heights. The materials, that's the material cost. The equipment, all the labor and all that is being donated by the community and the people in that area. So there is no cost when it comes to outside people being involved. That's a first. I don't believe I've seen that much volunteer activity in terms of moving forward. The other points I wanted to make here is the trails are built to a standard. The standard is 4 inches of depth. So the idea that we're going to be taking down trees blows me because we're parks and trails. We want the things up. Okay, and it's 1.25 meters wide. Harold has agreed to ensure that we follow those rules and the volunteers do the job properly. Okay, lastly, the master plan. 2009, because I was asking. I'm the chair and I didn't know where the plan was last reviewed. And I found out that the last plan was done in 2009. That's 14 years. You're damn right it needs to be updated. And yes, we heard from council very clearly a month ago that needs to be done. It will be put on our agenda this next month, and we will be identifying and working forward with dealing with that. 14 years is too long. Royal Bay wasn't even in existence at that particular time. What we're planning and thinking of is this trail on Duke Road, if it comes into fruition, is a 3 to 4 to 5 year project. It's not going to get done in 1 year. And people have raised the concern, cost. I'm a Metchosin resident too. The cost is important. And if it's too damn expensive, it probably won't happen. And you'll probably have us saying that to you. So please, people, council, give us that responsibility to review and look at this and move forward. But for us to do the job properly, we need that survey. Because this property, a number of these properties are very, very old and they never had survey pins. They were just stakes. So, we can't be going and talking to people when we don't know what we're talking about. Okay? So, and the last thing I'd like to say is the reasons for reevaluation.
I have to address the chair.
Okay. I'm saying, well done. We haven't even got to that stage yet because until we do a survey, we don't know what we're going to be doing. So that's our thing. So please, 10,000 is a survey. 10,000 is for the community to step up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any others for public participation? Okay.
Oh, one thing else.
No, sorry.
Our meeting time.
Yes. The next PTASK meeting, I should mention, is the 19th of March on a Tuesday and at 7 p.m.
Correct. That's all we
Okay.
need to come to it.
Ms. Beth Bacon of Paris Road, please say your name and your road, please.
Beth Bacon, Metchosin resident. I'm in favor of all trails on every road. I want all our roads to look like Kangaroo Road and Lombard. I prefer trails where that has trees, trails that wind a little bit around the trees and where the people are separated from the traffic. I'm not arguing for this trail above another trail or below another trail in terms of priorities. I don't think the residents are the only people who have say. I think all of Metchosin has say. And I think we've got money coming to us for active transportation. We should be spending that on roadside trails. So I don't think it's going to be that costly if there's grant money for active transportation. But I see both sides of the story, and I want to put my faith in the Trails Committee to do their work, and I think that's where the decision or the recommendations should come from. And certainly the public should be consulted, and that's the broader public. I think because we have a special status of not having to densify, we have to accept that we have a responsibility to provide the recreational enjoyment for our other West Shore neighbors that are going to come this way. So I want bike paths, I want walking trails everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public participation? Thanks. Going once, twice, 3 times. Thank you very much, everyone. We'll move on. And so we have item number 4, adoption of the minutes. So the community planning meeting of February 12th. We've seen these all before. For these 2, can I have a motion to adopt the minutes of the meeting of February 12th? Councillor Rep and Councillor Donaldson, any comments? No? All in favor? Thank you. And adoption of the special community planning committee meeting of February 20th, which was the joint meeting between PTASK and Council. Comments or a motion to adopt the minutes? Councillor Craig?
I can make a motion to adopt, and I just have one comment.
Seconder, Councillor Donaldson, second. Councillor Craig?
Yeah, it might be here in the minutes somewhere, but there was a question raised about insurance coverage for the PTASK members working, for example, with chainsaws, taking down trees and things like that, or clearing trails. And I wondered if we might ask the CEO to confirm that insurance coverage is, that people in the PTASK are in fact insured for both injury and third-party liability when working there.
And what I understand is if you're working on municipal ground, and you're a municipal volunteer, you are. So
Right, and some of the parks, of course, aren't municipal property, so that's why I'm wondering about it.
Okay. So, Mr. Payette, that
Just be natural.
yeah. So, and we're talking about Eleanor Mann Park and the park in Libre as well. That's provincial land. So that might be worth having a closer look at and getting clarity on. So
Thanks so much. Yeah, just a note to council later on.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I've moved adopting minutes.
Okay. Seconded by Councillor Donaldson, and all in favor? Thank you very much. Carried. Okay, now we're jumping down to 7, and this is a message from Mr. Harding, who's a member of the Metchosin Cricket Club. Mr. Harding, could you come to the microphone and tell us about your proposal for a memorial bench and some background?
I'm David Harding, President of Metchosin Cricket Club. One of our founders, Ian Young, who was a resident here for many years, died just before Christmas. His family and the club actually would like to put a memorial bench somewhere around the cricket pitch. and they want to know, how do we go about doing it? Or getting permission to do it, I guess, is the most important thing. That's really the story.
Okay.
They are due out here in a couple of days' time. I know we can't get anything done that fast, but they've left it for me to sort of go through the process of what has to be done. So that's really my request. We would like it somewhere, obviously, around the cricket pitch. We do have a bench at present underneath the oak tree. There is room for another bench in that area, which would be nice because it's in the shade and it's not in sight lines of the wicket. It's the only actual shady spot on the pitch, so that would be our preference to put it there. But
Okay.
we would just, and they are willing to pay for the bench and for the clerk to go on it. So
Great.
that's my request and their request.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I have some thoughts on maybe next steps, and we'll
Get back to me.
yeah, for sure. But you can have a seat, and we'll talk a little further about it.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay. So committee, we just a few weeks ago we passed the park donation guidelines, which basically calls for this to be coordinated by the Parks and Trails coordinator. And what I would suggest is that we refer Mr. Hardy to Ryan Carter, who's our TC, the Trails coordinator, and that he work with Mr. Pyatt and Mr. Harding and their family, try and see if this can be achieved. So moved. Great. And second. Okay. Any further discussion? Councillor Johnson.
I just want to thank Mr. Hardy for the explanation and sharing the wish of the club and the family. I think this is not an exceptional idea. We have talked about having some of these memorial benches maybe on our properties. And I know the location he's talked about, so having both Ryan, Bob, and Mr. Harding doing a walkabout to see where that could be placed would be ideal. It certainly is a nice spot there. They can watch the game in the shade. I support this idea.
Great. Okay. Thanks. Any further, Councillor?
Yeah, I think that would be great. Ian just lived sort of around the corner from us for many, many years, and was a real contributor to the community. And I think it would be nice. And I love the idea of the benches. You see people, sitting on them in various places and taking a break, and they're just really having a really nice feeling about them.
Great. Mary.
Yeah, of course, condolences to the family, and I agree with everybody that these benches are great. Perhaps this is something that we can urge the Parks and Trails to put on their agenda for the next PTAS meeting, so it doesn't get lost.
Great. Okay. Okay. With no more comments, I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you very much. That carries. Great. Okay. So we'll next move to item 7B, and I'm just going to, so I would direct folks' attention to the screen as I learn how to use this here. So I'll just mention on Saturday, February 24th, we sat down as a council on that Saturday morning and spent a few hours talking about what our priorities were for 2024. And we did this in light of the strategic planning exercise that we did in 2023, which addressed what our priorities were under 4 main topics. So, economic, fiscal, environment, social, and municipal governance. And so we tried to follow basically that pattern and looking at what our priorities could be for this year, and understanding especially that there's a lot going on, and often what you say you want to do is kind of what you dream of doing as opposed to the actual work. So we tried to factor that in as well. So we very much understand that staff are busy, budgets are underway, land use matters will come to us, and we're also under the gun this year to address some of the provincial housing legislation requirements at all. That said, we settled down to look at what else we could do, and we came up with 8 key topics. So, top of mind, I think, for everybody is the school. And we're playing a support role in this particular one, but district administration, support district administration in developing an effective management plan for the school. And we've provided direction to administration to bring forward a management framework in 2024. Now, context for this, we're all in the midst of budget right now. The school right now is, I think, $184,000 cost to the district. Our goal is to bring that down significantly by finding a new commercial tenant. And also, wonderfully, Mr. Payette is working with the Metchosin preschool to get them in place, and they are a paying tenant as well. Councillor Epp will have some more information about the naming process for the school, and that's also something we identified that Saturday. So that's number one. So number two is complete a feasibility assessment for a new fire hall. And within that, there's been a lot of information that's been provided over the years in terms of the need for the new fire hall, but we need to basically collate and come up with a clear rationale and confirm that a new fire hall is the direction we're headed. And so as everyone has heard, we are proceeding with this feasibility study, pursuing options in terms of what other needs it could meet, and that possibly could be some housing options as well. So no decision has been made to go ahead with those housing options. We merely want to look at what options exist. Okay. Third one is update the bylaws that support environmental protection, peaceful, livable community, housing challenges, and those with revenue implications. So we're going to be looking at, and Council, please feel free to speak at the end of these. We're going to be looking at things like the business license bylaw in terms of short-term rentals, and that's around housing, the tree management or tree preservation bylaw around environment, the bylaw notice enforcement regulation. Apparently this regime will allow us to issue fines and address issues in terms of environmental degradation or neighbor impacts in a much more expeditious way. And again, you see the rest of them. Fees and charges bylaw, the building bylaw, that covers things like inspections, and is actually quite a significant revenue source for the district. It has not been updated in a significant amount of time. I know the subdivision servicing bylaw, and particularly around proof of water for subdivisions. So, and you see the other items there as well. Councillor Cribb?
And I'll just offer, we have some correspondence in the package a little bit later. And so that point about proof of water, we may also hit our zoning bylaw, it looks like.
Okay. So the fourth one is a companion to this one, and it is strengthened by law enforcement. And again, these are priorities that I think this council had right out of the gate. Environmental protection, minimizing neighbor impacts, and also housing matters as well. Now, short-term rentals is going to be a target there. And again, the ones that are non-compliant. There are short-term rentals in Metchosin, and the ones that are legal, they're fine, but it's the ones particularly around those that are lending out homes that are not their principal residence. And we're going to take a look, this is probably later in the year, legislative tools and process to address unauthorized dwellings. And I have to say, one of the things that came up with this is the theme of paying one's fair share of taxes. And I think that's a theme that we'll probably see play out over time. And when you have a suite, you essentially have added value to your property and should be paying the concomitant increase in taxes per the value. So, okay, we're further down here. So, obtain information for an informed decision on the future of the bufferland. Now, the Bufferland Working Group held 11 meetings in 2023, and each was open to the public, so it was really an opportunity for the community to give their thoughts on the future of the 113-acre property. So the Bufferland Working Group delivered its report in October, and essentially their recommendation was to rezone parkland from its rezone the buffer to parkland from what it is currently now, and that's commercial recreation. Now, council met on November 7th, and it provided further input to staff. And so what we're waiting for now is an assessment of the options in light of both the Bufferland Working Group's recommendation and council's input. And the basic questions are, can can we create a park that acts as a protective ecological buffer? What are the costs of doing so? Is there a near-term cousin to this idea that might be more cost-effective and effective as well? And if we can't do that, what are the other options? And way back when, one of the other options was consider selling the buffer land, which the process was definitely underway to do that. So again, another priority. Getting near the end here. Other priority is basically continue to protect to work toward our environment. So biodiversity, watershed protection, shoreline and green space area protection. A few notable things, we're going to be looking at launching a shoreline protection plan. Councillor Gray is leading the quest to see if we can strengthen riparian areas protection. Water and watershed protection is a huge issue, particularly those of us with wells, and particularly at this time of drought as well. So, anyone else further comments on that? Okay. And support opportunities to enhance, okay, this is a big one, agriculture, recreation, culture, and community building activities. So this comes in two parts. So we're going to finish up and enact Metchosin's agriculture plan. And any timeline on when that might be finished?
There will be a presentation to council in May.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, we also talked about the district's parks and trails master plan. There is, in my council's update, there's a recommendation to discuss this further and get PTAS input on this as well. And Councillor Epp has been spearheading a grant application for the active transportation plan along with Chief Dunlop, and we're hoping to hear word about that any day. So part two of this, and I think last year was a bit of a kind of a watershed event for Metchosin because we held two big activities, both of which I think went incredibly well. The Vintage Car Show and then Metchosin Day. And I believe the view was, why not look at holding more? If we can get a handle on parking and crowd management and just make sure everyone has a good time, why not look at more? So we're going to take steps to review fees, make sure they're done at least on a cost recovery basis, and also firm up that parking plan. So we have some administrative things to do, like clarify the grant and aid process, and then the volunteer awards that we issue annually. And I also want to thank Councillor Donaldson. She provided all but one of the photos, including that little lamb there, which has no place in this particular photo, but it's delightful. So, yes. Final one is enhance communication with residents, and there are three things here. We do have an email subscription to news that comes out from the district, and we don't have very many people on that right now, but I think significant interest in getting news and timely updates. So I think the sign up is it's just info@metchosin.ca. You can make a request. Yeah.
It's on my website too, right there.
Yeah. So info@metchosin.ca and just say add me to the add me as a subscriber.
In the next news.
Okay. Yeah. Great. Okay. We're going to look at redesigning the district's news column. I think it's been the same probably for decades. Just a fresh look will draw people's attention to it. And then look at including a newsletter in the tax notice that's coming up. So basic stuff. That's it for the priority discussion that we had on that Saturday. So great. Thank you very much, Councillor Gray.
I just might add two thoughts that have come subsequent to our meetings. I just thought it worth mentioning. It seems there's probably a couple of things that are going to happen this year that are more or less priorities and are just rolling out of the budget. And one is council being better acquainted with the fire department operations. You know, we've got some issues in the budget in terms of new positions and things like that. And I think that it would be helpful for us to understand about things like we don't want solo responses. We want our firefighter call-outs to go in teams. Do we have a standard response times that we're shooting for? And with that kind of things in place and we become familiar with them, then the kind of budget asks make more sense and they're easier to deal with. So it just seemed to me that council getting into the circle, or maybe me, but other people knowing well enough how it works, that would be a big help. And then the second thing that we've identified in the budget that I'm thinking of in terms of priorities this year is we're talking about a roads and culvert management plan or an asset management plan. And that will help us and inform our decisions next year. And again, give us lots of information at the council level as to, well, the staff level, but then later at the council level. So we might have discussions about quality of roads and the cost of either retaining our current approach of doing repaving schedule, or whether they're going to be doing more maintenance and that kind of thing. So those are coming up naturally out of our budget, but they almost some of them rival in terms of they're quite important to us. So I thought worth mentioning this evening.
Thank you very much. Okay, move down the agenda to the councillor's update. Just want to mention that I was able to meet with the executive of the Metchosin Arts and Culture Community Association a few Saturdays ago, and one of the things that Macca talked about is the events that they are ambitious to hold this year, and also the eternal question of how do we go about renting the gym. And so we're going to meet with our CAO on Wednesday to talk further about this. So, okay, next item. Duke Road East Roadside Trail Feasibility Study. Now some background on this, Council. You have seen the feasibility study before. It was presented at the joint PTASC Council meeting, and we didn't really have a chance to talk about it at that point. So I wanted to get it on the agenda now and get your thinking around it. I have proposed a resolution here, and I wouldn't mind. I don't want to drive forward with it right at this moment. I would like to hear more from the committee in terms of what they're thinking based on comments said earlier today or earlier tonight. If you don't mind, I'll just make my own observations. I think we can very much, and I believe it would be advantageous for us to allocate money to possibly pursue this trail. But I think that there is some more work that we have to do. And I have to say, I'm not overly compelled by, the cost, the future maintenance, or the fact that this doesn't necessarily fall into the Parks and Trail Master Plan portfolio. I have to say, in the time I've been with PTASC, and it's not been very long, we are not really referring to the Parks and Trails Master Plan as a guide and as a direction. However, interestingly, if I see value in the parks, if in this Duke Road trail, there's two things, maybe three things that stick out. One is connectivity. So if you look at where the trail connects to, there is the potential of that connecting to Whitty's Beach Park at Tower Point, and also further up north, both the Far Hill Road, which you get to through the Latoria Creek Community Bridge, which was a PTASC effort a number of years ago, but also the Latoria Creek Park. Admittedly, that is across Metchosin Road, but I think there is good connectivity there. And there's also the potential of high use as well. So there are 50 homes that are along the actual route, and I think there is the potential for good use as well. One of the things that's been noted at PTASC is there is a tremendous amount of volunteer spirit behind all of this, such that some of the people who have served on PTASC for quite some time have never seen before, and that I find very compelling. What I also find compelling, though, is if there is indeed a petition, and there seems to be, that involves significant members of Duke Road, sorry, not members, but residences of Duke Road, that to me, we do need to give pause to that. And so my mind right now is to maybe take a pause and understand where the concern is and what the nature of it is, and see if we can address some of that. But I go back to what Mr. Aubrey was saying. This project has been discussed, I think it was way back in at least April. So this has been talked about for some time. And PTASC does rely on people coming out and contributing. And I would just say there's been talk about a roadside trail on Rocky Point toward Hans Helgeson that would be wonderful to do. but we rely on community members to come out and express that and also be willing to pitch in as well. And so the residents who have advocated for this trail, they have done exactly that. And I believe that they should be very much commended and their efforts obviously respected. So I would stop talking at this point and I would value your input, committee. Councillor Alison.
Thank you, Councillor Shukin. I want to commend all of the residents, both sides of the community, all sides of the community actually. In this process, there has been a great deal of passion and concerns expressed. There's been discussion at this table as well as at the PTAS meetings. Today was the first day I was able to actually read through the petitions, and I was I'm always kind of curious about how petitions work, but I just want to, besides my curiosity, I just want to say that the petition that has, I think there was about 134 signatures that I actually counted. Just several of them were blank. If they don't sign, I don't count them. Signature means that's what you sign. You can anybody put their name and whatnot in other spaces. So what I learned was that petition was actually, I don't know if it started before Metchosin Day, but it certainly was at Metchosin Day, and there were at least 18 people that do not live in Metchosin that signed it, as far away as Land's End Road and West Coast Highway, which is just past Souk. There were people that don't live in Metchosin that signed it. About 77 of the Duke Road neighbors did. So, and people who live in other parts of Metchosin, so 40 others, as I did, section those out. So, you know, of 134, it was a little bit, I don't know why people outside Metchosin even signed it, honestly. I'm not sure how that was promoted. And then looking at today's more updated, or maybe not updated, the recent petition that took place within, I guess, the last week, of 63 signatures of door-to-door of that particular neighborhood and a few outside Metchosinites. So 42 in the Duke Road and 21 of Metchosinites in a very, very short period of time. I actually went on to the assessment site to look at the maps to see where those addresses were, and they were almost, as Mr. Brown had said, side by side on Duke Road. I was quite surprised that we had done the walkabout, you and I, from where the sidewalk ends past Chapel Heights all the way up to Metchosin Road. So it was good for me to actually get out and see it on foot. It's been quite a few years that I've walked through there, but I've talked to some neighbors recently and asking them what their thoughts are, and they all seem to, or not all, because I didn't take a petition, so it doesn't matter if it weighs in or not. I'm just saying their observation is they're okay with the way things are right now. However, every year PTAS has $10,000 in their budget to do minor capital, I believe. So that is allotted, and it has been suggested that that money is to be invested into a survey, because the road and where fence posts and stuff are is not all straight and geometric. So I agree with Mr. Aubrey that certainly you need to find out where those pins are so you know what you're working with. Gathering that information, we already know the types of, just according to the master plan and Mr. Parapolkins and the experience of the PTASC of how to build these types of trails. The most outstanding thing for me in all of this is public consultation. We have a group of people that are passionate, but I think we've missed a group of people as well. It's their neighborhood. It will affect some of their properties. And I think having a public engagement or a town hall meeting specific with them is really important. Not just signatures on a piece of paper. That's valuable. That certainly has brought it to our attention. But we do need to understand what their priorities are in their neighborhood. I know that if it were me, I would have an opinion as well. I would want somebody from the opposite side of the community dictating everything. I certainly want their input, but you know, shoe on the other foot. The environmental impact, of course, is important. That always gets taken into consideration with PTASC initiatives. The financial investment. I know that you have come to council in the budget talks at our finance committee for additional funds of $10,000 for the first phase. There's another request for $10,000 from capital reserves. I'm not sure if we're now at $30,000 or $40,000. I would like to have a little bit more information as to where some of the funding is going. Certainly the $10,000 is not to be questioned. I understand where that's going. And we do understand that, I have also initiated or at least promoted the fact the master plan needs to be addressed at some point within the year, I hope. But certainly the public consultation is the important part right now, I think, that's missing. Not just an interest group, but the whole neighborhood that's going to be affected.
Mm-hmm.
And the connectivity, there's lots of wonderful trails there. Starting to connect some of those again would be ideal, even going up Chapel Heights, a bit of a hike, but
Yeah.
it's a thought.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Donaldson. Anyone else? Mayor Little?
Yeah, thank you. So for reasons of connectivity, greater connectivity and safe passage and community building, I'm in favor of pursuing the phase one. I do think that we need to have more consultation, and Mr. Aubrey, the chair of the PTASC, has invited everybody to come to PTASC. What I think we should do is refer this to PTASC. But I do think that we need that first step of the survey, because without that we can't do anything. So next year we could address it again, but then it's the same question. We need to start with the survey. So this has already been a year in waiting. I'd like to see movement on this. So the $10,000 is for the survey, and then the $10,000 is for not for equipment or labor, just for the materials for the small phase one part to finish the already existing trail. And so I would be in favor of that, and I'd also be in favor of referring this to PTASC as they've asked.
Councillor Epp?
Well, I love roadside trails. I hate riding my bike on the road, and when I have a horse, I hate riding her on the side of the road as well. So I find roadside trails such a safe way to get around Metchosin on ways other than driving your car. We, in our strategic plan, we have been moving toward an active transportation plan, and hopefully there'll be an announcement about the grant recipients pretty soon, and if we can get something like that, we will get it going anyway, regardless. But to have a plan, it's the Active Transportation Infrastructure Network Plan, and that includes public consultation, it includes setting goals, it would enable council and PTASC to really work together on updating the plans. I mean, it's a really comprehensive plan for trails, for cycling lanes, and basically, all things related to getting people off the highways and the roads into other modes of transportation. So I think that's, could provide a lot of the input to any trails that we want to do. I really think that it's important to do the surveys, a survey of that. And also, I'm a big proponent of the trail that would go from Lombard past Hans Helgeson to Aquarius, because a trail like that would, on a really dangerous stretch of our road, would really connect to our general trails network all over Metchosin, from the Goose to several other trails. So I would support getting appraisals, excuse me, not appraisals, but of both that one and the Paris Road one. I think that's would be enough to start with.
Rocky Point.
Rocky Point, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, losing track. I wrote it down too. Anyway, but yeah, to get a survey is what I was trying to say of both of those trails. I'm not sure how much they cost, if that's feasible, but at any rate, I think that's a good starting point. and then referring it to PTASC to deal a little more with the public and just find out a few more of the concerns and the hopes for people around there.
Thank you, Councillor Epp. Councillor Gray.
Yeah, I guess I'm concerned that unfortunately this whole issue is dividing the local community, and that's not good for anybody. And I guess we need a somewhat improved process of how to bring people together to sort out what might be best for the neighborhood. When this first came up, we received a really comprehensive note from the group calling themselves the Albert Head Neighborhood, and it was pretty cool. I phoned Aaron Ronci right away and said, this is very neat. And I looked at the proposal and I said, there's the Albert Head Loop Walk, but boy, what I like is the Metchosin Connector Trail. The idea of having something along Metchosin Road that would help convey people, particularly thinking of a contribution, there's increased housing in the Royal Bay area, and people coming to Metchosin. My preference would be to direct them down Metchosin Road to Whitty's Beach rather than into this neighborhood. But anyway, that was just my first thoughts about it. At this point, we heard from PTASC the other day, we've had a few different documents, and I guess what concerns me is this is called Phase 1, Phase 2, and Phase 3. And I'm uncertain at this point, I've heard what people said about connectivity and from the podium, but also amongst ourselves. Would people be satisfied if we just did Phase 1? Or would it be a big cry of it saying, my gosh, you didn't complete this project? We don't actually know the total cost of this project at the moment. So this entire project isn't a $10,000 project or $20,000 project. Numbers being kicked around here like $100 and something thousand. And my guess is we're not likely to proceed on something that expensive. We are in a tight fiscal situation, as everybody knows. And so that's sort of my concern. The project is a really big, costly project. And if people are happy just doing a part of it, and that means the neighbors, in addition to the group who are interested in the trail, then very well. But let's not pretend that we're going to jump in on $100 and something thousand project by starting Phase 1. I'm not saying that we'd be pretending, it's just the notion being that things will, as we go along, we might get bit by that. So I'm interested in knowing what the total cost would be before investing very much at all, and then learning from the proponents, would they be keen just to have these, these shorter trails here, and what does that mean? So that's kind of taking a slightly different look at the package. I take Mr. Aubrey's point that PTASC is the right group to be consulting and talking about this, and PTASC may want to kick it back to us to have an open house or something, or otherwise. There was a notion too, I think we saw earlier today, about putting something in the Muse just to get the discussion going. I think all of those are valid.
Thanks, Councillor Epp, but I just want to make one comment first. That is a fair point about the cost. And the one thing, though, that the residents, again, who have pursued this with, I think, diligence and rigor and also maturity, fully understand that, and they've indicated all along the way that they'd be either willing to contribute time and materials and equipment, or help us with grants as well. And so, as Councillor Epp has pointed out, if we pursue this active transportation grant planning thing, we open ourselves up to getting even more grants. So I think that's one of the ideas about developing this over time, but with the help of grants as well. So, Councillor.
That's just what I was going to say. That I forgot to say that once we do have an active transportation plan in place, then we can apply for some really big money, which comes up every year in active transportation infrastructure. And so, it could really fund just so much in Metchosin. So I kind of hesitate with that in our strategic plan that we're moving ahead with, and really getting too carried away too soon with spending a lot of money. I do agree with the survey.
Okay. Sorry, Councillor, just to clarify, you agree with spending money on the survey in terms of...
I would agree with spending the money that we already have in the budget and have had in the budget every year, which is a Trails Development Fund of $10,000.
Okay.
I don't agree with adding any more to that right
Okay.
at this point.
Great, thank you very much. Anyone else? Councillor Gray.
Yeah, just in response to your comments, that I see the point that there may be tons of money coming, but with tons of money coming, hopefully we'll have a master plan and be looking and setting priorities, because even then it may be that we're not prepared to spend $100,000 on a trail. Or we may say, gosh, let's do that trail that was so high priority last year, even has helped us in school. And that seemed like that might have been costly. And we said, oh, golly, we really couldn't afford that. And so there'll be competing interests. And if we're successful in a grant, then we really do need to get down to looking at our priorities and seeing what's our top down.
Yeah.
Again, I think this is a really cool idea, but given the presentation tonight, the concern of the people whose properties are fronting on the trail, I think pausing, as you've suggested, doing makes sense. As has been pointed out, there's $10,000 already in the PTAS budget. It's there for use, and PTAS could advise us if they think the survey is the way to go. It's the question I think that we might be pondering in our budget talk, not later this week, but next week, is that other $10,000 and what happens to that? I might just opine at the moment that at the moment is in the one-time money, and it could simply be labeled trail, and then we could pause and have a discussion about this and see where that goes, and not making a commitment one way or the other, but one time as we know our action or not, depending on what happens next.
Okay.
So you have room to have PTAS proceed on one side of things, but at the same time holding back.
Yeah. And just again to summarize, we do have 10,000, I believe, allocated in a one-timer. Is it 10 or 20? I'm not sure. But we also have that ongoing budget that PTAS has in terms of, Councillor mentioned it before, parks, capital development. So there is money there to pursue. Yeah. So what
Just not sure you need a motion tonight is all I'm saying.
Yeah. I'm happy to park this for now, with the understanding that we turn it back to PTASC and begin some discussions that might allow us to understand a little bit more deeply the concerns of neighbors along that way. So,
and even in a feasibility study, you've noted that people were concerned about privacy, drainage, impact on trees, pedestrian bike activity. Those are the kinds of things that I think PTASC is probably well placed to talk about. Are there solutions or are there no, and how might it work? And that would be a fruitful discussion, I hope.
Great. Mayor LeDuc.
Yeah, and also following along with what Councillor Epp was saying, I think it'd be great if we can nest the Parks and Trails Master Plan in collaboration with PTAS with the Active Transportation Plan. And I can't underscore enough what Councillor Epp has said is that Colwood, with their Active Transportation Plan, was able to apply for a $6 million grant that they were granted last year for a boardwalk along their waterfront for safe passage, environmentally friendly safe passage. So there is large money that we won't be talking about $10,000 and $20,000. There's millions of dollars that is available on a yearly basis. And we've just not, like our agricultural grants, we haven't been able to apply for them because we don't have an agricultural plan. We're fixing that this year. We will move forward on the active transportation plan, which will give us eligibility for other people's money.
Yeah, great. Okay, thank you. So just in summary, the action here is essentially to refer this back to PTASC. So I don't think a motion is needed. Okay, great. So moving on, Parks and Trails Master Plan. And so again, we were talking about our priorities, and Council has identified updating the Parks and Trails Master Plan as a priority in 2024. And the one thing I would just say about this, I think if this is to be done well, I don't think anyone will disagree with me on this, it has to be thought out. The process does have to be thought out because so much of the value in doing this comes from the process. And if you're rushing it, it was suggested that maybe we could do a plan, just page and add it to the existing plan. that doesn't really do much in terms of engaging the public. So I wanted to ask the committee if they have any thoughts on community engagement, focus on trails and/or parks, how it might fit with the active transportation plan. One of the things that we should do is send this back to PTASC for their ideas as well. But if we are considering the possibility of how of this being in the active transportation as well and the development of that, then it's a broader exercise, I think, as well. So, yeah. And whether we look at the formation of a working group or a task committee or something, but yeah, any initial thoughts? Councillor Johnson?
Yeah, so just on what you ended there, actually, that was one of the things I was thinking is if you had something, ask PTASC what their commitment is to how much work they want to put into a master plan, because as you've noted, there can be considerable time taken with that. So it got me thinking about the successes we have had with working groups, because they're short, they go in there, they do an incredible amount of work in a short period of time. There is that as an option, or a subcommittee of PTASC, and that could involve either members of PTASC, other citizens, past PTASC members even, that are still ambitious to do things, just not committed to a committee. So there's those sorts of things, with the idea of being able to merge it with the active transportation. I think we done solo first, just to get the skeleton of it started at least, and then at that point, just like we did with the Bufferland group, having some public engagement, which would involve all of the community, not just different neighborhoods, but everybody, because it affects our whole community.
Yeah.
In how we traverse, which has changed since 2009.
Yeah, very much. Okay. And sorry, the one thing you mentioned, Councillor Donaldson, is essentially you're hinting at the labor involved in doing something like this.
It could be.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
If you want to do it efficiently, right? And I think that we do going forward. I don't know that we're going to get everything done in 6 months or less, but it depends on, I'd like to hear back from PTASC to what degree they want to go with on upgrading the master plan. And then we will, as we've already discussed, hopefully merge it into the active transportation. How we do that step, I don't know. I'd like to hear from my colleagues on that.
Mm-hmm. Great. Anyone else? Councillor?
Yeah, as Councillor also mentioned, I think this needs to go back to PTASC, because I think they know more about this than any of us. So I think it would be really good just to hear what they think is the best way to go with updating these plans and who would do it.
Great. Okay. Councillor Gray.
Yeah, in terms of the melding of this in an active transportation plan, it seems the active transportation plan, maybe a big chunk of it might be about the connectivity aspect as compared to trails within parks. And so I see they're complementary, but they maybe not necessary to wait for the active transportation plan funding, but we'll see. The opportunity to have a plan that sets out our priorities, I think, is a very good one and would be a big help to us.
Audience members agree. So, okay. Maybe I'll get a motion to refer the question of an update to the Parks and Trails Master Plan to PTASC. The question and requesting their input into the process. Okay? So moved.
Sorry.
And further discussion? Councillor Gray? I remember when we spoke at a meeting with PTASC, they were interested in, well, what exactly are we looking for? So we might just chat about that a tiny bit. Otherwise, we're kicking them something that there's lots of space to fill that they may not fill that we want filled.
Yeah, that's a great point. And sorry, I was thinking about that.
So I guess I'm thinking about the trails that exist today, and that issue of taking a look at the plan that we have that's written now and updating it in terms of like when I look at it, what confuses me, because I don't know every trail, I look and think, I think that one was done, or was that one done? So that's a very, I think, probably straightforward for the team, just to make a first cut and say, these things are done, so this is kind of what's left on our list. And then there may potentially be some new ideas. They're not new, but we've got the Weirs Beach one is happening. It's sort of a priority. The Duke Road one is on here now, or East Duke Road. Just to be sure they're there. The other ones are the Hans Helgeson one and what Councillor Epp was talking about a moment ago. So those ones we've at least mentioned. But I'm thinking the first opportunity to make a clean sweep to update. And then, from my perspective, the team may well say, and we've been talking about this other thing amongst ourselves for a little while. So the ideas that are generated from the group are on the trails all the time. That would be my second kind of thinking. What have you got? Have you got any ideas particular that you think we should have done or ought to be done? And then I think we probably do get to the connectivity question, and maybe by that point we'll be moving forward with an active transportation plan. We can have some pollination between the groups of the parties. Yeah, those are just my initial thoughts.
Yeah, just thinking about this myself, the components of what could go in there. So there's things like roadside trails. There's the potential of parks that may come from subdivisions. There's the buffer land potentially coming in Section 2895. So where does that fit in to a broader park? And the active transportation component as well. Electric bikes are something that will assist a lot of us in mobility as we get older, and do so without a big fossil fuel footprint. So again, stuff like this. But to me, again, the critical thing is thinking about the process and how that's going to be run as well. So in terms of input we want from PTAS, those would be my things. And I'm making mental notes. I'll jot these down when we next meet. So, any further thoughts? Okay, hearing none, we'll keep moving on. So we don't have agenda 8 anymore. We have a correspondence for information, so Alison, LeDuc, as well as the Pinks. Now, Alison, Ms. LeDuc, gives us a letter that covers the very intriguing question of water, and in particular, she notes the importance of this whole process of proving water for new subdivisions. And we have talked about that. We talked about that in the spring of last year around the Beckingham subdivision. And to me, I believe that there are still some unanswered questions, and the issue might still be in play. And so I think it was actually in October that I brought forward the potential of policy around proving water. And the idea around that was making sure that we didn't allow, without some sort of further checks and balances, the ability to prove water in the wet seasons, which is not necessarily going to be reflective of what the realities are. And of course, we're doing this within the context of what is likely to be, again, another stage 5 drought as we move on. And I will say that I'm living this as well. My well was proven to be a very strong flow, one of the highest in the subdivision where I live, and we're now out of water in the summers, and I fully expect that we're going to be there as well. So Alison is pointing out a number of things that help give more vigor and rigor to the proof of water concept. Now, what I did, the letter from Ms. LeDuc is really great, and especially the 2 examples. What I would maybe suggest is that at the next meeting, I might gather some more information, even to present an option for council to consider, and actually even see if we can direct our CAO to dig further into what the realities of a policy might be. So, Councillor Green.
I think we did talk about it, as you say, and I believe there was some direction to staff at the time, was there not, to take a look? And I just wanted to reflect my comment earlier, and also taking from Alison LeDuc correspondence, and something we heard from Ellen Frisch, who spoke a number of times from the microphone about the water situation. And both of them are, Alison LeDuc is mentioning the subdivision side of things. Great, that makes sense. But the other point that Frisch and LeDuc mentioned is the rezoning applications. And we don't have, from one point of view, we should be requiring people very early on in the rezoning application. So I'm just suggesting that if staff are already looking at the subdivision bylaw, maybe we could provide them a copy of the correspondence, copy of the comments made by Ellen Frisch, so they're thinking about the zoning questions as well. So those are my contributions.
Okay. So the action you're
just with the staff are, I think, already looking at the question of proof of water and digging through that material.
Okay.
And so I'm just suggesting the new thing was, it's not just subdivision applications, it's also rezoning applications.
Okay, fair enough.
And they're dealt with in different ways, it looks like in Nanaimo and North Okanagan. But just to make that clear, we can do a motion or just simply adding it to the work that's already been done by staff and providing them this correspondence.
Okay. I should note that in light of the work that Councillor Donaldson is doing around water and the presentations that are here, we've had a further discussion with Gord Baird about the potential of setting up a groundwater program for Metchosin. And we're going to be meeting with Mr. Payette on the 25th or something to talk further about that. But I wouldn't mind at the next opportunity kind of reframing this question of policy, and ideally do that with Mr. Payette's guidance as well, and fleshing out some of the input that staff maybe have from this. So the question, back when we raised this, is policy appropriate or is it bylaw? And so finding out how the two can weigh. As I understand policy, it is the direction to staff in terms of what procedures to take. Bylaw, interestingly, municipalities have discretion. They enforce their bylaws or not. So it seems almost, if you look at it that way, policy might be the stronger tool. And around this, it's not even a question of prejudicing or going after developers. It's just making sure that things are assessed on a fair basis. So in terms of water viability. Sorry, Councillor Craig.
Well, I think that discretion is there for policy as well as bylaw, so I'm not sure that cuts the slices it just right. I would favor bylaw simply because it has enforceable, generally would be enforceable and a stronger tool. But I take your point. Let's hear from staff on that question, and I'm just adding in not just subdivision but rezoning.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Great. And remember.
Yeah, I would also be in favor of a bylaw that has more teeth and it is enforceable. Alison's or Ms. LeDuc's given us these two nice examples from the district of Nanaimo and the regional district of North Okanagan, and with these one's a policy, the North Okanagan one is a bylaw, and with that they're able to have tests in the seasons where it should be tested in the summer or the autumn months for proof of water. So I think a bylaw would be a way to go, and if staff could look into that, I think that would be great.
Okay. My only concern with anything around bylaw is the time it would take to actually build in, and policy can be done in a matter of weeks potentially. So, but we'll get there. Yeah.
Well, let's add that into the question too, because I think that's a good point. And just to say too, we could recognize the other correspondence here about Bacon and Morgan Yates also. We've got some good material to hand on to our planner and Mr. Payette.
Yeah. Great. Councillor? Okay. So I don't think we need a resolution. My goal will be to have this on the next planning committee agenda, and we'll look forward to further discussions with Mr. Payette. So with that, we do have correspondence from a number of people, and the petitions, of course. Thanks to everyone for their well-thought words and well-thought thoughts. And with that, a motion to adjourn. Councillor Donaldson, and seconded by Mayor Little. All in favor? And we're adjourned. Thank you so much.